Hey everybody, welcome to this very first episode of Holistically Thriving. I am your host, Stephanie Tornatore, and I am so excited to be finally sitting down and filming this episode today because today is the #1 episode. I've already filmed a bunch of other episodes, but today this is going to be the #1 episode because this is going to be about my story and who I am and why I'm creating this podcast and how it's going to help you change your life. And so I've been thinking about making this podcast now for the last couple of years. I received a download from my guides, my angels, a couple of years ago that was like, you are going to make this podcast. Actually, at first I saw it as like a website. I saw it as like a holistic healing hub. That's what I kept getting. It was like, it was going to be a website that had on the top of it all these different aspects of your life that you should be working on in order to feel like you are thriving. So I kept seeing like little drop down buttons of like, all these different life themes like birth and death and relationships and spirituality and your job and finances and all those kinds of things. And I kept receiving these messages every couple of months that would be like a little bit more information of like, hey, you're also going to do this and you're going to do this and you're going to do this. And to give you a little bit of a background, I've already built a brand before. But hold on, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Let's go back all the way back. So who am I? My name is Stephanie. I actually am a professional musician. I have a master's degree in oboe performance. If you don't know what an oboe is, it's the one that looks like a clarinet, but it's not. And I've been a musician my whole life. And then pretty much after college, I was like, cool, now what do I do? Because I knew I didn't want to be a music teacher, like a public school teacher. I do still teach private lessons, but I knew that I didn't want to teach publicly. So I never got my music education degree. I just had music performance. And so I moved to New York City. I did a few things there. I managed an Italian restaurant. And eventually I came home because I was like, this is ridiculous. This is not what I want to do. I do not want to be working 70 hours at a restaurant. And at that time, I had always had this idea that I wanted to teach our generation how to cook because I don't know about you, but when I was in college, no one around me knew how to cook until we had our first apartment my junior year. And I would go to the grocery store and I would pick up a piece of raw chicken and I would call my mom or my grandma, Tina, and I would say, how do I cook this? And so that's how I learned how to cook. And one of the things I always tell people is that my friend across the hall one day, I was just cooking some chicken and garlic or whatever. And he opened the door to my apartment very dramatically and was like, oh my God, what's that smell? And I was like, it's literally just garlic sauteing. And it was just this big joke of like, it's so simple, but to us, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing and magical. It's literally just garlic. So that's how I learned how to cook. And I had always loved filming and editing, and my dad, because my dad does that as well. And he used to help me make like school projects and projects with my friends and making funny little videos. And so I had a video camera at a very young age, and I had, a laptop, and I was using not Final Cut, iMovie at the time. And I started to receive these downloads of like, hey, make a YouTube channel, because I always wanted to be on TV. I always knew from a young age that I was going to be some type of a public figure because I just always wanted to be on TV. I wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to like do all these things. And so I was like, well, I'm not on TV, so I guess I'll put myself on YouTube. And this was back in 2013 when, YouTube was like thriving, but it wasn't like it is now where everybody puts themselves on YouTube. So at that time, I called myself Classy Cooking with Chef Steph. And all I was doing was teaching us, our generation, how to make really simple recipes. Literally, like very simple, chicken with peppers and onions, or I don't even remember all the things it was, but they were all just super simple. And I was always saying things like, and you can make extra so that you have leftovers. And I called them leftovers. And you'll see why this is important later on. But anyway, so I learned so much about YouTube. For the first 2 years, I think I got to maybe like 10,000 subscribers, and I was dedicated. I was doing 2 videos a week. I was putting in more than 40 hours a week, learning everything I could about YouTube, improving my video editing skills, filming myself. I was a one-man show. I was doing everything all by myself. to the point where I actually quit my job. I was working as like at a jewelry store just to make some side money, even though I was teaching private lessons and, working with my family's theater company. I was in that mindset of like, I have to have a 9-to-5 job. Blah, blah, blah. I am not a 9-to-5 person. I should have known that. But anyway, so I sat down with my manager. I was like, I need to quit because I need to put all my time and energy into Chef Steph. And I could do that at the time because I was living with my parents. So it's not like I had rent to pay. And she laughed at me. She was like, are you serious? You're not even making any money. Literally the first month of YouTube, I made 13 cents. Not even kidding. It was just like a couple of dollars every month after that too. And so she laughed at me and I was like, yep, I'm doing it. I got to go. Like I got to do 40 hours a week. Let's go, full on YouTube. And funny enough, actually, when I left, the first day that I wasn't there, the jewelry store got robbed. And my coworkers were held at gunpoint. So everyone was fine, but thank you, universe. Thank you, angels, for getting me out of there and not having to go through that very traumatic situation. But yeah, so then after that, I just full on dove straight into YouTube. And it was around that time that I was also doing Isogenics, which is a health and wellness company. It's a network marketing company. And on there's a Facebook page for the young people. So the 18 to 35-year-olds, and it's called Start. And I still use the products, by the way. I absolutely love Isogenics. I don't really share it with many people as much as I did, just because I have so many other things going on, but I still love the products and the culture and the company. And so in the Facebook group, I met a guy named Adam who lived in Australia. And we started talking and we had a lot in common. And we talked every day for 3 months on Skype until he finally came to visit me. And when he came to visit, he was here for 3 months. And then we just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth from Australia to America for a couple of, like a year. And eventually we were like, let's get married because it'll just be easier. And at the same time, we were like, he was also, he went to chef school. So he was like, trying to be on my YouTube channel. And I was like, okay, this is getting awkward now because it's not just Chef Steph. Now it's Chef Adam. So we were like, let's rebrand. Let's make this a thing. And we rebranded it, called it Fit Couple Cooks. And at this point I had 10,000 subscribers and we posted a few videos. And then he had always said chicken broccoli rice because he was a personal trainer as well as a chef. And so he was just constantly eating chicken broccoli rice, right? And that's all I ever heard him say too when we were on Skype. And so he was like, well, let's do meal prep too. And we had all these ideas. We were like, we want to talk about fitness and health and nutrition and like expose the food industry for all the crappy processed food. And we made one video, chicken broccoli rice, meal prep episode 1. And that video has over like 13 million views now. And it's still to this day, the #1 meal prep video. And that video just kind of launched us. And if we ever tried to make other videos about fitness or anything, nobody watched them. We would get like hundreds of thousands of views on all of our meal prep videos, but we couldn't branch out of that. It was like we were stuck in meal prep because we became a niche that we didn't really want to become, but it just kind of happened that way. And so we ended up, we had crazy experiences. First of all, YouTube is it's a very difficult platform to be on. It's very volatile with income and money. And just because you have, we ended up with over 500,000 subscribers, just because you have that doesn't mean that they're actually compensating you enough money to actually live off of. But we did do a lot of brand deals. We did big brand deals with we had a manager, we had brand deals with Tabasco. Tabasco flew us out to Avery Island in Louisiana. We had this amazing experience in Louisiana with the Tabasco family, the McElhenney family. And we had really amazing things. We went on a book tour across the country. DK Publishing approached us and was like, hey, we want you to ghost write a book for meal prep. And we want over like 200 recipes. And I responded, I was like, are you kidding? Do you know who we are? Like, we should be on the cover. People know who we are. We have, at that time, I think we had like 300,000 subscribers. And so I showed them a ton of analytics and they decided, yep, we agree with you. Let's do it. So we were not ghostwriting anymore. We were creating that book, and that book I think sold over like 75,000 copies. And so we wrote another book with them. We wrote plant-based meal prep. And I think that one sold only like maybe 25,000 or something like that. But in total, it was somewhere around 100,000 copies. And that's insane. So we went on a book tour across the country. That was a big mistake because we lost a lot of money. It wasn't really well planned. And I had done something really dumb. Like I bought a ridiculous amount of t-shirts and we hardly sold any. So it was just some bad business decisions there. But anyway, and then at the same time, we bought a house very nearby to my parents. I got pregnant, which was intentional. It was very intentional. And then I had a beautiful home water birth. And, on the outside, Sophie's now 3.5. On the outside, it looked like we were living the perfect life. We looked like we had this magical marriage of two countries. It looked like we owned a home. We had this thriving business. We were selling books like crazy. We were doing all these insane brand deals with big, well-known companies like NutriBullet. We had a dog, like it looked like we were perfect. And on the inside, I started having severe turmoil because we were not anywhere near perfect. And I was very unhappy. It was a very difficult marriage. And I knew it from day one. And you're going to laugh when you hear this, but I literally got married knowing that this was not a good decision. And now I say that, but I also say after that is that I'm very grateful that I did get married because I learned a lot of lessons along the way. And so did he. And we clearly chose each other in this lifetime to work through these issues and to help each other grow, right? Because that's why everybody comes into your life. And we also brought Sophie into the world, right? So, we got married in the last day of 2016. It was December 30th. And then almost 2 years ago today. So it was 2020. It was June. It was on the solstice. It was June 21st of 2020. I said, I'm calling it quits. And it was the reason why I'm starting this podcast is because I've had a lot of experiences in my life. I've worked through a lot of pain, emotional and physical. And that's why I started this so here's now the missing piece that I haven't said yet is that pretty much since we started dating, since we were together, which by the way, we weren't really dating because we were like from two different countries. So it was like Skype dating. And then it just went straight into like living together. So it wasn't like we ever courted each other or, any of those type of things. But we got, pretty much right after we started being together, I started having this weird eczema thing. And I remember this first patch on my arm and I was like, what the heck is this? I didn't even know what it was. I had perfect skin my entire life. It's almost kind of funny because the amount of people that would comment on my skin just randomly, like when I was working at the Delaware Symphony Orchestra, I walked across the stage and I'll never forget that my flute professor from University of Delaware, she looked at me and she was like, Stephanie, your skin is just glowing. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. Like I've always had perfect skin. My mom is in her 60s and she looks like her skin looks like she's 30. My family, we just have good genes for skin. And so, another crazy time was we were in Australia and one of Adam's friends, it was her birthday party and she has severe insecurities about her own skin. And she was like making a toast and she started talking about my skin and how beautiful my skin was. And I was like, well, this is awkward. But anyway, so I had all of a sudden all this eczema. And actually the very first thing that happened was in the middle of the night when Adam was sleeping next to me, one of the first nights he was there, I woke up and I was like, why are my boobs so itchy? I was like, what is happening? So I went into the bathroom and I put coconut oil on and then that made them itch 10 billion times worse. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, I didn't even know what was happening. And then I started to develop eczema patches. And then, at this point in my life, I was the thinnest I've ever been. I was like 23% body fat, something crazy. I was going to the gym like a maniac. I looked so good. I felt so good. I was so healthy. And I had to like cold turkey stop going to the gym because every time I went to the gym, if I sweat, then I would get a new eczema patch that wouldn't go away. And so I was dealing with all this stuff and I was like, what is happening? I didn't know what was going on. I started being super extreme about my diet. I went, full on gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, vegan. And I mean, I'm going to like cut this short because at some point I will explain the entire healing journey. But the point is that it wasn't until about 2 years into desperately trying to figure out what was going on with my skin, as it's getting progressively worse and worse and worse, to the point where like I was covered from my belly button up to my head in red, itching, scratching, flaking, inflamed, just horrible. Like it was miserable. I was constantly miserable, not only the emotional component of that, but also just in general. Like I was so frustrated that I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was, I was desperate. I was doing the most ridiculous things. There was one thing I tried. I literally drank hydrogen peroxide. It's called the 1 minute cure or something. I lasted for the first like 12 days and then I gave up because I started to throw up from drinking hydrogen peroxide. I do not recommend that. Don't do that. But I'm just trying to show you how desperate I was. And I eventually got to a point where I was only doing everything physically. And my brother looked at me after 2 years of me struggling and said, "Why are you focused on physical? How do you know it's not emotional?" And I was like, light bulb. Oh my God. Like I never even thought of that. And so that's when things started to shift, was when I started to look around me and say, okay, what's going on here? Okay. I have a really stressful job and I have a really stressful marriage. And then on top of it, then I got pregnant and then I had a baby, a newborn, and my marriage was not healthy at all. It was not healthy. I don't want to delve too much into that because he and I now have a healthy co-parenting relationship. So to protect him, I'm not going to full on say, and maybe at some point I will in a different podcast, but this one I'm just saying, it was just very unhealthy. And so when I started to unravel the relationship, we talked to therapists and we tried this and we tried that. And I gave him, CBD oil, and I was trying really hard to help him with supplements, and he refused to take any medication. So, and I'm not even a proponent for medication, but that's like how desperate we were. And so it got to a point where I finally realized it's time. Like I can't do this anymore. And around the same time, I got somebody reached out to me that I knew from Australia who was a naturopath. And she was like, guess what? Remember that machine I was using on you when you were here? It was like I was holding copper rods and she was able to see what I should and shouldn't be eating. She's actually the one that was like, wait, what do you mean you're eating eggs still and cheese? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, cut that out. Like you got to get out dairy. You got to get out eggs. They're so inflammatory. It's not helping you. And so I left her office that day saying, I need to buy one of these machines. And she was like, well, you can't because it's only for, practitioners and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so a couple of years later, she messaged me and was like, guess what? Now you can own one of these machines. It's a different brand, but it's, the same concept of frequencies. And so when I got that device in my hands, it was the beginning of June, 2020. I got that device shipped to me from Australia because it hadn't even hit the market yet in America. And when I got that device, basically what it does is it scans your body for all physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual things. And I saw some things on there that showed me for myself, the answer was like, I need to leave this relationship. It is killing me. And also for my daughter, like things were coming up for her about her dad. And I was like, this is not good. I need to be the big person here and like say, hey, we need to fix this relationship. And it's not going to be fixed with the three of us still living together. It's not going to work. And at the same time, I was also seeking help through, all different types of energetic healers. She's going to be on the podcast. Her name is Sierra. She is the most magical person I've ever met. And she did a whole ceremony for me the very first time I ever met her. She delved into my Akashic records and found a previous life where we were together. And it explained so much of what was going on in this lifetime. And so, it was difficult, but I made the decision to leave, and I did it with compassion and kindness. And now, and when I left, I said, I never want this to be a nasty situation. I want us to both work together so that we can, for our own sake, but also for our daughter's sake, and it took a while, but now, 2 years later, we actually have a very healthy co-parenting relationship, and we're friends now. Like, we're better friends now than we were when we were married. So, this frequency device really was the full catalyst of like, I need to leave. Good. Let's fix it. And at the same time, it was able to send me frequencies to help me with the emotional stressors. It was able to help Sophie at the same time while we were going through a very difficult process of leaving our house, moving, selling our house. And then my ex, Adam, actually purchased his own and started using it. And it really changed him too. Within 2 weeks, my family and I were all like, he's a different person. That's crazy. It was intense how much he changed. And I'm very grateful to this frequency device, because that is why, I swear that's the reason why we're all so well adjusted after this whole thing has happened. And so I will share more about that in many, many, many podcasts. I now work with clients. If you're interested, you can go to the-frequency-solution.com, book a session with me. I've been using this on people now for over a year. I've had hundreds of clients, and it has been absolutely magical every single session, and spot on accurate. You don't even have to be near me for it to happen. You can think of it like a car fob, right? So like a car fob, if you click your car fob, unlock, how does your car know that it's the one that needs to be unlocked out of all the cars in the parking lot, right? It's the same thing. I'm going to tap into you and your energy, and using the device, I'm going to be able to tell you what's going on with you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So anyway, that was the-frequency-solution.com. I will talk about this in many, many, many podcasts. So that brings me to explaining why I started this podcast. Because when people think of, I need to fix my life, what's the number one thing most people do? They go straight to their diet and they say, I'm going to go on a diet, or I'm going to go start going to the gym. Well, it's very hard for people to continue going to the gym. It's very hard for people to continue a diet. And really the thing is that they're focusing on one main aspect of their life. But what about all these other aspects? There's so many different things that I had to work on in order to get to where I am now. And now I feel like I'm a different person. I'm thriving again. Like, this is how I felt 10 years ago, but a whole new version of me, right? Because you're constantly, rebirthing yourself through every process. And so I feel like, I feel like I never thought I would feel like this again in my life. Like, I thought I was doomed forever and my skin was going to be horrible forever. And like, if you're watching this instead of listening to it, you can see my skin is like normal. And I'll tell you that there was a time right before Sophie was born that my entire face was covered in shingles. You couldn't even see the white of my face. It was just scabs all over my face. And I never thought that I would have my normal face back. So I've been through a lot, and I came out on the other side. And that's the reason why I started this podcast, is to help you understand what area of your life is it that you need to work through. And so don't just think about food. Like, what are your relationships like? What does your job look like? What are the stressors of your life? Do you have a really bad relationship with your brother? Do you have a really bad relationship with your husband? Do you have really hard time with your kids? Do you have a really stressful job? Do you eat really unhealthy? When you're sick, do you immediately go for the Tylenol, or do you go for the frequency device? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many aspects that we can talk about of spirituality. How's your sex life? Whether it's with a partner or with yourself, there's so many different things. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be bringing on people onto this podcast who are, experts in their field. But then also I'm going to be sharing with you the things that I've learned and share my experiences, because this is one of the funny things is, like, I knew for a while that I was going to start this, but I was always so hesitant because I was like, oh God, I can't imagine starting another brand, because the last brand I started practically killed me. Like, yeah, it looked great. We sold 100,000 copies of books and we had 500,000 subscribers, but it was hard. It was really hard. And so, one time a psychic friend told me, she was like I hadn't even told her that I had these thoughts. And she, out of the blue, was just like, you're going to start something, right? And it's going to be like all the natural things that you really love to talk about. And I was like, oh God, don't tell me that. Cause I know that, but I don't really want to do that. And she was like, yes, you do. This is what you love talking about. And I was like, yeah, but like, oh God, I can't imagine starting over again. And she was like, you're not starting from scratch. What are you talking about? You have all this experience from your first YouTube channel. And I was like, oh, okay, that's true. That's true. So I view everything as a stepping stone to life. All the things that I just told you were stepping stones, right? So like when I started my first YouTube channel, and then I met Adam, and then, we went to Fit Couple Cooks, and then we rebranded to Steph and Adam. It's just like, all the different steps of my life. And I'm very grateful to all those experiences that I have, because it led me to where I am now. And the biggest thing about my skin was that it led me to learn about everything holistic. And this is what I really love. I love learning about natural ways of healing. I'm also now a Reiki practitioner. I know so much about herbs and supplements and healthy foods and emotional things. And there's so many things that I have learned that only happened because I had to figure out how to heal myself. And now that I figured out how to do that, now I'm sharing it with all of you. Whew. So that's a little bit of my background and why I'm starting this. And, a whole other thing. Oh, I forgot to tell you, like I even made an entire 21-day birth course after I had the most magical, beautiful home birth. I created a 21-day birth course to help women not be so afraid of birth and to give them all the tools that they need to be able to have a magical experience as well. So we're going to talk about birth. We're going to talk about death, because what if all these other areas in your life, you're like, yeah, I'm good with all those. But what if you're actually terrified of death? And you have this like constant thought in your subconscious about what happens when we die. Oh my God, how am I going to die? That's obviously an area of your life that you may or may not be realizing is impacting you. So yeah, we're going to talk about so many things: nutrition, healing, supplements, herbs, jobs, finances, sex, spirituality, birth, death, just everything. And I'm so excited to do that because it's true. My friend was right. Like if someone asks me a question about birth or wants me to help them talk about birth, I'm also a doula, by the way. See, this was my problem. My whole, the last, 5 to 10 years was like, yes, I love music, but I actually love all these other things. What I really love to do in general is help people. And I love being able to share my experiences to help them with their own experiences. And, I have all these different things that I love. That's why I became a doula. I became a Reiki practitioner. I am now a frequency therapist. I still do music things. And so it was always difficult for me because I was like, oh, it's so confusing to even me of like, I do so many different things. Like, who am I? And this is going to basically encompass all of who I am. It's all of these things, all of the knowledge that I have learned, all of the experiences that I've had. I'm just going to put it all into this one podcast so that when you listen to this, you can be helped or enlightened or whatever it is that you want to call it. Maybe just like my brother said to me, is it not a physical thing? Is it an emotional thing? That one sentence literally changed the direction of my life. And so who knows, maybe one thing that you hear in here is going to help you change whatever's going on in your life. And that's my hope for you. And I don't come at this from a place of like, I know everything, I am a guru. Like that's not it at all. I'm just sharing because I love sharing that this is what happened to me. This is how I fixed it. Maybe that can help you too. And I'm always learning and growing, and I'm always learning new things. And going through my own experiences and coming out the other side, I just had a whole other experience that I just learned through, right? Because we're always learning through our experiences that I'm sure I will talk about in another podcast, because I'm a very vulnerable person. I'm happy to share my life with people. The one thing I will never really get in depth on was our marriage, because that is detrimental to my ex-husband and my daughter. But I will tread lightly on that topic, but every other topic, I am a wide open book. I am like, yeah, totally. I will tell you anything. Like, and that's why my friends love me on Facebook, because I am very, very vulnerable. You wouldn't believe the outpouring of love and support that I got when I did share about our divorce. the amount of people that messaged me and was like, oh my God, I can't believe you said all that. I've been thinking those exact things since, the last 20 years of my marriage. Or the amount of people that messaged me and they were like, I can't believe you did that. You're so brave. I've been thinking of doing this for 50 years, and it was unbelievable to me to realize how many people are struggling with the same things. And let me tell you, as a frequency therapist, and after helping over 100 people, we all struggle with the same things, but nobody really talks about it. So that's it for today, guys. I wanted to try and keep this short, but no way that was going to happen. But I am really excited to take you guys on this journey with me. Please like it, subscribe, share with your friends, post it to your Facebook page, whatever it is. I will appreciate, you helping me spread the word. I'm going to be on TikTok too. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a whole thing, guys. So that's it for this first episode of Holistically Thriving. I'm your host, Stephanie, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Sending you lots of love and light. Bye, guys.